Hello there, how you doing? Welcome for some good stuff. We're going to explore this great big old book. You cannot write in the books. No, you can't write in the books. Who told you that? You can't write in your books. You can highlight in any color you want. You can put tabs on it, which we're going to do. And those tabs must be permanently affixed. And if you're going to write on the tabs, which is a good plan, then write the answer on the tab, but it must be in ink. Gotta be in ink. Everything's gotta be in ink. Let's get this show on the road. This is going to be about 9th edition refrigeration and air conditioning technology. Yippee! This is a lot of fun. This is 8.5 pounds of wisdom, and we have to absorb it. So let us start putting some of this in the accumulator and pass this test. What do you say? We need to learn how this book is put together. So let us turn to Roman numeral 3. This will be titled Brief Contents. And let's talk about it for just a moment. This is a big old book, and we got to get this stuff straight, or we're not going to pass. This brief contents shows us the book is divided into 10 sections, and I would strongly recommend you put a tab on the 10 sections. And you might want to consider highlighting those tabs so they stand out. You can highlight them in yellow, blue, something. Make the tabs stand out because we're going to turn a page and see what happens with the real contents. Roman numeral 4 is your real contents, and this breaks down those 10 sections, and it totals out to be 50 sections if you can imagine that. But this would make a quick reference test day if you had this marked. The most important page of any book, though, is the index. So you're going to have to travel over to page 1666. And please, put a tab here. It is a very good index. An index is a word locator, and we need to take advantage of that. Because test day, we're going to be hunting numbers and words, and we're going to pass this test. There's no reason for us not to, if we do everything the way we're supposed to do it. It is up to you, though I do recommend it, that you tab each unit in the book. Remember, there are 50, so you're going to have to pre-plan how you want to do it so your tabs don't get mixed up. The first one is on page 16, unit number 1. This is about heat, temperature, and pressure. We now travel to page 30. This is unit 2. This is about matter and energy. Now, please remember, we need to tab this correctly. The best way to break a book up is to put the tabs that divide the book at the top, and then have your word answers along the side because you're going to have much more room. And save the bottom for math. Math cannot fail you on the exam unless you let it. So, this is Unit 2. It would naturally be tabbed at the top. We now turn the book to page number 40. This is Unit 3, Refrigeration and Refrigerants. We need to learn how the book is put together so we can navigate at test day because you're going to get a lot of questions out of this book. Let's go to page 78, Unit 4, General Safety Practices. Now it is off to page number 97, Unit 5, Tools, Instrumentation, and Equipment. Traveling over to page 133, we find Unit 6, which is going to be all about fasteners, how to screw things together, nail things together, etc. Our next unit can be found on page 149, Unit 7. This is tubing and piping. For some thrilling information, we go to page 182. This is Unit 8, leak detection, system evacuation, and system cleanup. Life is exciting. We now travel to page 217, Unit 9, Refrigerant and Oil Chemistry and Management, Recovery, Recycling, Reclaiming, and of course, Retrofitting. Our next page is 254, Unit 10. This is all about system charging. This chapter is a fairly short chapter. We now go to page number 271, How to Calibrate Our Instruments. That ought to be fun. Our next page is 284, Unit 12, Basic Electricity and Magnetism. And when you make that money, people know you're rich, you're going to find out about magnetism. We now jump over to page 315, Unit 13, Introduction to Automatic Controls. Next up on this unforgettable lineup is page 329. This is Unit 14, Automatic Control Components and Their Applications. On page 358, we find Unit 15, Troubleshooting Basic Controls. On page 382, we find something truly dynamic, Unit 16. Here we are treated to a fascinating adventure about advanced automatic controls, digital direct controls, DDCs, and pneumatics. Life is truly good. Our next page is 406, Unit 17, Types of Electric Motors. Fascinating. As if this were not enough, we go to page 438, Unit 18, Application of Motors. We need more about motors. Let us turn to page 456, Unit 19, Motor Controls. Yes, indeed. Sometimes motors break down. Let's go to Unit 20 on page 467 and learn how to troubleshoot electric motors. On page number 486, which is Unit 21, here we begin our exploration of evaporators and the refrigerating system. We now turn our attention to page 509, Unit 22, Condensers. Following all of that good information, we go to page 543, Unit 23, Compressors. Let's put the squeeze on that one. We need to expand our horizons, so let us go to page 578, Unit 24, Expansion Devices. Next up on the docket, on page 605 is Unit 25, Special Refrigeration System Components. And really, I must tell you something here. The people involved with writing this book did a fabulous job. I mean, fabulous. It is so up to date, it's unbelievable. It is as if it were not only of sight and sound, but of mind. I'm telling you, this book is really the Twilight Zone. Next up, we find ourselves at page 652. This is Unit 26, Applications of Refrigeration Systems. Following that adventure, we travel to page 688, Unit 27, Commercial Ice Machines. What a chiller that's going to be. Let us continue our journey to page 733, Unit 28, Special Refrigeration Applications. You'll probably never do this, but they'll probably ask you a question because you'll probably never do this. Next up, we go to page 752, Unit 29, Troubleshooting and Typical Operating Conditions for Commercial Refrigeration. We go to page number 800. There we find Unit 30, Electric Heat. Good old dry electric heat. Warms you up good. Next up, we go to page 820. We find Unit 31, Gas Heat. I like it better than electric because it is dry and it warms you up. Love it, love it, love it. Continuing our journey, we find ourselves at page 893. This is Unit 32. This is about oil heat. Now, if you're going to get involved in oil heat, please know what you're doing. People can die if you mess up. In our brave new world, we find ourselves at page 954, looking at Unit 33, Hydronic Heat. As we meander down the path of fortune and fame, we find ourselves on page 1011. Dealing with Unit 34. And by the way, this book has 1,701 pages. Wow! We now go to page 1036 and find ourselves staring at Unit 35, Comfort and Psychrometrics. Don't forget to put the R in it, Psychrometrics. It may seem crazy, but you might get yourself in trouble without that letter R. We now go to page 1061, Unit 36, Refrigeration Applied to Air Conditioning. We now find ourselves heading on down to 1083, looking at Unit 37, Air Distribution and Balance. We are now off to page 1134, Unit 38. This is about installation. And I do hope you understand now why we're breaking the book up. The book is easy to read. It's easy to find stuff within the book if you know where to look in the book. Let's go to Unit 39, which is on page 1158, Residential Energy Auditing. This involves learning how to use a blower door, which you can do the blower door test with your license. We have a class showing you how to do it, and we would be glad for you to attend the class. Let us go to Unit 40, which is all about typical operating conditions, and you can find it on page 1206. Turn the page till you get to 1221. That's Unit 41. This is about troubleshooting. Let us now meander to page 1254. This is Unit 42. This is about heat gains and heat losses in structures. I'll see you there. Now let's go to page 1273, Unit 43, Air Source Heat Pumps. Next up is page 1325, Unit 44, Geothermal Heat Pumps. We now traipse over to page 1360, Unit 45, Domestic Refrigerators and Freezers. We continue our search for knowledge on page 1421, Unit 46, Room Air Conditioners. What a fascinating subject. You probably won't do any of it, but then again, you're probably going to get some questions because you won't do any of it. We are in section 10 of the book now on page 1452, Unit 47, High Pressure, Low Pressure, and Absorption Chilled Water Systems. You probably ought to know the difference between absorption and adsorption. Our next unit can be found on page 1498, Unit 48, Cooling Towers and Pumps. Next up in our quest is Unit 49. It's on page 1527. This is Operation, Maintenance, and Troubleshooting of Chilled Water Systems, as well as air conditioning systems. You can't get any better than that. On page 1554, we find Unit 50, Commercial Package Rooftop Variable Refrigerant Flow and Variable Air Volume Systems. I told you this stuff was exciting. We have a couple of more things to highlight at the top of the page. One of them is on page 1603. This is Appendix A, Alternative Heating, Stoves, and Fireplace Inserts. You will need a tab also on Appendix B. This is page 1612. This is your temperature conversion chart. Why do the math when you got the chart? Makes good sense to me. Another important page, turn 1, you're at 1614, 1614, and for certain have a tab here. This is your glossary. They start asking you about what this is or that is. Go to the glossary. Normally you'll get the answer right away because time is of the essence. Test day. The last one to tab at the top you should have already done. That's the index, 1666. Now your book is set up correctly. You should be able to find things quite handily. We're going to continue our journey, though, because we're going to find out we need to know some tidbits of information within those chapters, and we're going to point a few of them out to you. I never have seen a test that didn't ask questions about what is on page 22. Please learn the difference between sensible heat and latent heat, and also learn about what is known as the latent heat of vaporization, the latent heat of condensation, and latent heat of fusion. Those three things are very important. And if you look on page 23 on the left-hand column at the top, you're going to find a number. That number is 970.3, 970.3, third line. That is the latent heat of vaporization. You can boil the water all day long. It's never going to turn to steam unless you either change the pressure or you get rid of 970.3 British thermal units per hour per pound of water. That will then allow it to turn into a vapor. That's why we need to know this stuff. Let's go to page 33. On the right-hand column, there are gas laws. We're going to have to learn about Boyle's law. How about Charles' law on the next page? You know that, dude? Now, we need to be tabbing this on the side of the book. Just put Charles' law, Boyle's law. They're going to ask you the question, turn to it, and you got the answer. Another critical page is page 46. You'll have to turn your book 90 degrees. You're looking at figure 3.13. This chart shows the temperature-pressure relationship in inches of mercury, or PSIG. And you need to take a look at the different colors. That is, you're trying to separate refrigerants. On the left column, you have the temperature in degrees Fahrenheit, and then you have the R's. And we have 22, 134, 407, etc. And you'll see that they repeat as the temperature Fahrenheit increases. Great chart. Let's go to page 150. Below the photograph on the fourth line. The OD, outside diameter for most applications in plumbing and heating industry, will be 1/8 inch larger than the size indicated. And pay attention to figure 7.2 at the bottom of the page. They're showing you nominal half-inch tubing versus ACR half-inch tubing. Little bit of difference, wouldn't you say? But can they be substituted one for the other? That's the important part, and you're going to need to know that test day. On page number 156, we're going to see something that contradicts another book that we have to have test day. On the left column in the second paragraph is talking about brazing. And if you look 5 lines down, the brazing temperature in this book is above 842 degrees Fahrenheit. So make sure you're using the right book to answer the test question to get it right test day. On page number 213, there are a couple of things we need on the left column below the partial paragraph. Heat plus refrigerant plus moisture equals acids. Moisture plus acid plus oil equals sludge. On page number 227, we're finding on the right column refrigerant numbering, and we got to know how to do it. This is a DuPont numbering system on the fourth line, and it works with refrigerants that have either 0 or 1 as their leftmost digit. And then let's read what the chart is saying right below it. Number 1, the first digit from the right is the number of fluorine atoms. Number 2 tells us the second digit from the right is 1 more than the number of hydrogen atoms. Number 3, the third digit from the right is 1 less than the number of carbon atoms. For example, if this number is 0, then there is 1 carbon atom and the refrigerant is methane base. That would be like R12. Let's introduce a new word to the playing field. Let's go to page 229, right column, first full paragraph. Near azeotropic refrigerant blends may also experience fractionation. Fractionation occurs when one or more of the refrigerants in the blend condense or evaporate at different rates than the other refrigerants. Amazing stuff. This is where they're combining refrigerants to get something, hopefully, that will work better. Go to the paragraph below, are numbers for the blends. The 400 series blends are near azeotropic blends. The next bullet, the 500 series blends represent the azeotropic blends, for example, R502. And then the third bullet, blends can also be named by the percentage of each refrigerant that makes up the blend. Let us go to page 266 to find out a little bit more about this azeotropic stuff. On the left column at the last paragraph, azeotropic blends are mixtures of two or more liquids that when mixed together behave like the commonly known refrigerants R12, R22, and R134A. Now, something we have to take into consideration is there is another type. So go down a couple of lines and we're going to find out, however, many refrigerant blends in use today called near azeotropic blends or zeotropes act differently when they evaporate and or condense. So we're going to have to learn a lot about that subject if we want to pass this test. We need a tab on page 278, and this is Ohm's law. It's the I is equal to E over R. And I is for current, E is for the voltage, and R is resistance. Let's go to page number 293, and we're going to find a slight spin-off on Ohm's law. It's on the right-hand column near the bottom, electrical power. Watts is equal to volts times amps. I reverse it just because I have a simple brain, and I need to have something to associate. I always go that watts is equal to amps times volts. That way I can say wave, which it isn't really wave because it doesn't have an E, but I remember it, WAV. Watts is equal to amps times volts, and now I can move it around any which way I want, no matter what they ask test day. Let's go to page number 319 on the right-hand column, halfway down, snap disk. The snap disk is another type of bimetal device used to sense temperature changes in some applications. Snap disk. Let's go to page 349, bottom of the page, all the way down the right-hand column, below the picture. And then we're going to find out what that picture is. It's item number 3. Air switches, or sail switches as they are sometimes called, are also used to prove that combustion blower motor is operating before energizing the main gas valve for ignition. Good stuff to know. We are off to page number 363. We're on the right-hand column, second to last paragraph. And we're on the second line. Without high voltage, there is no low voltage. When the service disconnect is closed, the potential voltage between line 1 and line 2 is the power supply to the primary of the transformer. The primary input then induces power to the secondary winding of the transformer. We are off to page 373, left column near the bottom, pictorial and ladder diagrams. And you want to go down 3 lines from the bottom of the paragraph. 2 distinct types of diagrams are furnished with equipment: the pictorial wiring diagram and the ladder wiring diagram. Page number 415, right column at the top. The capacitor start, capacitor run motor is one of the most efficient motors used in refrigeration and air conditioning equipment. Page number 419, left column, hermetically sealed motors. A hermetically sealed motor is one that is completely enclosed inside of a metal shell, such as a compressor. Page number 425, left column at the bottom, 3-phase compressor motors. Large commercial and industrial installations will have 3-phase power for air conditioning and refrigeration equipment. Our next page is 439, right column. We're looking at voltage near the bottom. The voltage of an installation is important because every motor operates within a specified voltage range, usually within plus or minus 10%. And then there's a little figure down at the bottom in blue and gray, and it's showing you the plus and minus percent. We now go to page 458 on the left column, and we're going to get past the little photographs, and we're going to see a relay with two contacts that close and one that opens is called a triple pole single throw, with two normally open contacts and one normally closed contact. Let's go to page number 464 on the right column, temperature sensing devices, third paragraph. The low melting solder, called a solder pot, may be used in place of the bimetal. Let's go to page 473 on the right-hand column, short circuit to ground or frame. Here you want to go to the third paragraph, last one on the right column. And this is dealing with motors, and here we need a big ohm meter. And what do we call that thing? Megometers. These are megometers, abbreviated often in the industry as meggers, M-E-G-G-R-S. They are electric meters used to check the resistance and condition of the motor windings and the condition of the refrigeration and oil environment around motor windings. Let us go to page 509 on the right-hand column. In that first partial paragraph, go to the bottom of it. The condenser performs three main functions on the refrigerant flowing through it: de-superheating the vapors, condensing vapors to liquid, and number 3, subcooling the liquid. Our next page is 520, left column, cooling towers. The cooling tower is a device that passes outside air over water to remove the system heat. And then drop down to, usually a cooling tower can cool the water that returns to the condenser to within 7 degrees Fahrenheit of the wet bulb temperature of the outside air. That's pretty good. Our next page is 683. It's the left column at the bottom talking about condensate removal. You see it down there? Go to the middle of it, and it's going to be talking about the drain lines also should be sloped downward about 1/4 of an inch per foot for proper drainage. Our next page is 689, and here we're talking about ice machines and stuff, and we're talking particularly here about flaking the ice and wondering how it's done. Well, look below the photograph on the left-hand column. On the 4th line, the auger forces the ice upward and out a chute on the side where it moves by gravity to the storage bin. The auger's cutting surfaces, called flutes, cut or shave the ice off the interior of the flooded evaporator cylinder. Now we know. That's good. Let's go to page number 734 on the right-hand column at the bottom. Last paragraph is talking about truck bodies. But we want to know about is called those refrigerated plates. They're sometimes called cold plates. They contain a phase change solution called eutectic solution. Phase change means a change in the state of matter, much like the change of state from ice to water, except at a temperature difference. When the change of state occurs, more heat is absorbed, much more per pound of material. Eutectic solution has the capability of changing state at many different temperatures depending upon the composition of the solution. Fascinating stuff. Let's go to page 743, left column near the bottom, cascade systems. Systems operating temperatures down to about a negative, get a load of that, a negative 160 degrees Fahrenheit may use what is called cascade refrigeration. Cascade refrigeration involves 2 or more stages depending on the system's configuration. Each stage of refrigeration is produced by a separate, complete refrigerating system. Wow. We are now off to page number 800, bottom of the page, under the paragraph about introduction. About 6 lines down. One type of material commonly used in electric heating is nichrome, which is short for nickel chromium. Let's go to page 928, left column, near the bottom, wiring diagram for CAD cell primary control with intermittent ignition. In early generation primary control circuits, the CAD cell discussed earlier may be coupled with a triac, which is a form of solid-state device designed to pass current when the CAD cell current resistance is high, no flame. Let's go to page 1026, left column, air humidification. Last paragraph. For comfort, the dry air should be replenished with moisture. The recommended relative humidity for a home is between 40% and 60%. When the relative humidity goes above those limits, bacteria, viruses, fungi, and other organisms become more active. Our next one is on page 1044, left column. First full paragraph below the photograph. The difference between the dry bulb reading and the wet bulb reading is called the wet bulb depression. And you want to study this stuff so you don't get depressed test day. We don't want that to happen. Study this stuff a little bit, maybe 3 or 4 times, read through it. You're going to pass the test. Our next page is 1112, right column, duct insulation. And in that paragraph, go down to the 5th line at the end. A 15-degree Fahrenheit temperature difference from the inside to the outside of the duct is considered the maximum difference allowable before insulation is necessary. We are now off to page 1139, left column, installing flexible duct, 2nd paragraph. Flexible duct must be properly supported. A support band of 1.5 inches or more in width is the best method of keeping the duct from collapsing and reducing its inside dimension. Our next page is 1194. On the left-hand column, drop down till you read about the categories. You have a Category 1 furnace, has a non-positive vent pressure and operates with a vent gas temperature of at least 140 degrees Fahrenheit above its dew point. Category 2 furnace has a non-positive vent pressure and operates with a vent gas temperature less than 140 degrees Fahrenheit above its dew point. It is no longer manufactured. Category 3 furnace has a positive vent pressure and operates with a vent gas temperature at least 140 degrees Fahrenheit above its dew point, which makes it mid-efficiency furnace. Then you have Category 4. Category 4 furnace has a positive vent pressure and operates with a vent gas temperature less than 140 degrees Fahrenheit above its dew point. It is a high-efficiency condensing furnace. Make sure you get it marked test day. You might just see it, and it might be the only thing between you and that magic number, 70. Yes, sir. We're looking for a 70 test day. Then we're going to be an air conditioning contractor. How cool can it get? Let's go to page 1206 on the right-hand column and that partial paragraph at the top. All equipment in the HRI directory is rated under the same conditions. 80 degrees Fahrenheit, dry bulb, 50% humidity indoors, and 95 degrees Fahrenheit, dry bulb, outdoors. Let us go to page number 1260 because we might need to figure the net wall area. And if we do, we're going to need the formula on the right-hand column below the house. Net wall area is equal to gross wall area minus the door area minus window area minus area of other components. Should be fairly easy to do test day. Our next page is 1275. Left column in the partial paragraph. From the bottom of it, move up 4 lines. Change of direction is accomplished with a special component called a 4-way reversing valve. Let's now go to page 1460 on the right-hand column near the bottom. They have a green band, but I would put a yellow band or some other color around the green band so it'll stand out. Capacity control in the centrifugal compressor is accomplished by means of guide vanes at the entrance to the impeller eye. These guide vanes, usually pre-shaped devices arranged in a circle, can rotate to allow full flow or reduced flow down to about 15 or 20% depending upon the clearance of the vane mechanism. Good information there, for sure. Our next page is 1498. On the right-hand column is something a little bit confusing. It may take a couple of readings to get it right. Come down to the last 6 lines on that right-hand column. The compressor accounts for almost 20% of the heat that must be rejected. This percentage is dependent on the type of compressor used in the cooling process. For example, a 1,000-ton chiller would need a cooling tower that could reject about 1,250 tons of heat. The additional 250 tons of capacity represents 25% of the chiller's cooling capacity. This continues on the page to your right on the left-hand column at the bottom with some math. They took 250 tons divided by 1,000 tons. Then they multiplied that times 100% and 20% of the total system capacity. So you have 250 tons done first, divided by 1,250 tons times 100%. Here's some good news. That's the end. Yeah, can you believe it? The end of the highlighting and tabbing for this monstrous book. This is the end of the fabulous 9th edition Refrigeration and Air Conditioning Technology. What a book! It is a great piece of literature. Make sure you go through it several times. It can help you test day. Get that big 7.0 that you need. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. I hope you learned a lot. See you in class sometime soon. Or maybe somewhere repairing air conditioners and installing them and making millions and gazillions of dollars. I'll see you later. Adios.